Well, Congressman, thanks for being with us. We appreciate your time.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to start by asking about the race. You were very safe in your seat. I mean, you're popular in your district.
Yeah.
Why drop out of that seat and run for Senate against Senator Ossoff?
You know, I don't know if it's a small businessman in me or not, but as most boss businessmen, you know, you throw all the chips on the table all the time, mostly every day, and you take the risk, especially when you see something important. And one of the main reasons that I went to Congress because I knew that my kids didn't have the same opportunities that I had. And when you look at us both as being first term, John Ossoff first term senator, and me as a first term congressman, and what I've been able to accomplish, 2 pieces of legislation signed into law by 2 different presidents, 2 different parties, bipartisan common sense legislation, and the fact that John Ossoff has been on the opposite side of everything, every piece of legislation, was responsible for a lot of the problems that we have in this country, whether it was immigration, whether it was the fact that our economy was tanking and inflation going up. And I know that I can go over there and take that seat and represent good, solid Georgia values and send California's 3rd senator home.
Yeah, you know, John Ossoff has a large war chest. John Ossoff has name recognition. Ossoff is very popular in very important parts of the state. You think you can beat him?
Well, popularity is one thing, but your voting record is another. Yeah, sure, he goes and talks a good game, slick all the time. But when you take a look at how his voting record has stacked up, he has voted against every group that we. The agriculture industry is the #1 industry in this state. And he voted against that big, beautiful bill, which had the farm bill in there to help farmers, whether it was reference pricing or whether it was wages. And he decided to vote against that. You know, and yes, he does have cash. He's going to need every penny of it because he's going to have to defend that record because we're going to make sure that the people of the state of Georgia understand exactly where he votes and exactly that he is in the pockets of California and the New York people that have been funding that race.
Yeah, we've seen some polling lately that is very favorable to you in this GOP primary. You've had double-digit leads over some of your opponents in some of the ones that we've seen. What do you think it is that's setting you apart now that we're starting to get some really reliable polling data?
Well, you know, yes, you have, and you've been seeing us separated from the rest of the pack. You know, first of all, yes, I've voted over the past 20 years. I think the fact that not only that, but I have not been in elected office until I went to Congress in the 118th, but I have participated in it. I've been around the Republican politics all my life. But the small business person, being out there for 30 years in small business and being able to take that experience to Congress and get 2 pieces of legislation, that is so hard to do. Now, I didn't realize it at first, but to get 2 pieces of legislation passed and signed into law by 2 different presidents, 2 different parties, just shows that I am willing to go up there and be a workhorse. And people see that. People in the state of Georgia just want somebody to go get something done. And bipartisan or not, and that was bipartisan legislation. And look at what it has resulted in. And people see that we have not only been a workhorse, but we've been effective. We've made the state of Georgia safer and the people in the state of Georgia safer.
Yeah, do you think the president has seen that? Because we're coming into the time now where he's making endorsements in races. He's made one in the 14th. He's made one in the governor's race here in Georgia. Governor Kemp ended up endorsing one of your opponents, Derek Dooley, who's a longtime friend of his, certainly, and a political outsider. Are you hoping that the president will end up endorsing your campaign before this primary?
Listen, I never speak for President Trump. Never would, never intend to do that. President Trump always has the knack of getting in at the right time and putting his support behind someone. I look forward to the day that I get that support. I would never speak for him, never even put a time frame on that. At the end of the day, though, Doug, I think that you see too, we know how to win this race. And we know that we've got the right message, the right story, and I'm the best candidate to take this to John Ossoff.
Yeah. You mentioned some of the legislation you've passed as a congressman. One of them was the Lake and Riley Act. That was the first piece of legislation that President Trump signed in his 2nd term. And of course, you know, everyone around here is familiar with how difficult of a time that was for the family, for the Athens community, and for your district as well. What did it mean to you to be able to get that bill passed and have it be the first piece of legislation signed by the president?
Well, it meant it was not just a personal satisfaction, but I knew that it could help. That common sense piece of legislation was what Tom Homan needed, and not just the Border Patrol, but the ICE, that ICE needed to make sure that local law enforcement could contact him to get these people off the street. And Doug, just look at what it's done in 1 year. I mean, in 1 year, we're talking way past 20,000 illegal criminals that have been taken off the streets, making us safer. And the fact is, the real fact of the matter is, I passed this out of the House bipartisan, both in the 118th Congress and in the 119th, which President Trump signed it. If John Ossoff really wanted to help pass this legislation, he could have very easily have done it in the 118th. I mean, the Democrats had the majority. Chuck Schumer could have brought it up anytime, and then Joe Biden could have signed it, and it could have floated off into la la land. But he didn't. He didn't lift a finger then. He never lifted a finger in the 119th. And at the end of the day, we got it passed. And it's been one of the. As a matter of fact, it has probably been the most consequential immigration legislation that's been passed in 30 years.
And yet we still have a lot of cities, a lot of sheriffs that are not honoring these detainers. So did it go far enough?
Well, it went far enough, but what we need to do is make sure that these sanctuary cities, these sanctuary states, we need to defund them. We need to get rid of the funding for them. That at the end of the day, they're not supporting their community and they're not helping keep them safe.
Yeah. You have, I think, what some people would view as an opposite problem in a part of your district, and that's Social Circle, where DHS recently announced that they were going to buy a warehouse there, open it up in Social Circle to become an ICE detention facility. Yeah. Is that something that you support?
Yeah, I support DHS. The problem is, this is a Biden administration and a John Ossoff problem. At the end of the day, they're the ones that let these people flood across that border into our country, and it's a problem that we're having to clean up, and we're cleaning it up. So I support that process, but I also support the people of Social Circle who have questions and say that the infrastructure is not adequate for that site. DHS has come on board. They're answering questions. They're communicating with the community. And at the end of the day, I look forward to them working this out and making sure that we can get these illegal criminals out of our country.
You know, we've heard from officials in Social Circle, even Republican officials in Social Circle, who have a lot of concerns about not just maybe not wanting this, but being able to do it in the first place, even if they did want that facility there. How do we make it easier on them if this is going to happen? What is your role in kind of assuaging their fears and their concerns about the infrastructure?
Well, that's exactly it. We make sure that their fears and their concerns are addressed, and we make sure that they're addressed, and DHS knows how to make sure that what they have concerns with it's taken care of. It's not that difficult. A lot of it's communicating and talking.
Yeah. You know, is there an irony to you here with, again, we've heard from Republican officials in Social Circle who have their fair share of concerns about this being there in the first place, not just for infrastructure reasons, but, you know, for safety reasons, for people's property value. You know, everybody seems to want to talk a big game on this immigration issue and be part of the solution, but when it comes to their community, we hear these same concerns.
You do, and that's legitimate, and I look forward to DHS just continue to address that and making sure that they alleviate those fears and those questions.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you too about some things that are bubbling with the Operation Metro Surge operations. I know, because again, I know immigration is a big topic for you. There haven't been any instances of that here in Atlanta. Although that has been floated by many officials. Is it something you would support? Things like what we've seen in Minneapolis, in New Orleans. Would you support Operation Metro Surge?
There are surges going on all over.
Yeah.
The difference is, and you know, Georgia is in the top 5 states of having criminals picked up, these illegal aliens picked up and gotten off the streets. Yeah. The difference is, you take like Minneapolis and Minnesota, sanctuary. The problem is the sanctuary cities and the sanctuary states where you have got governors and local mayors that are encouraging and demanding that their local law enforcement don't help and participate with ICE to get these people off the street, and a lot of times encouraging protests out there, which makes it dangerous for our ICE agents to get their job done.
Yeah, I want to ask you about some of your platform now. What issues do you think you can beat John Ossoff on? And when I say that, because I'm sure in your mind you feel like it's all of them, right? And you know, when I say that, what I mean is, what have you done over your term in Congress that you think John Ossoff has not done for the people of Georgia?
Yeah, well, I mean, you take taxes, for instance. You know, John Ossoff was wanting to increase the taxes on Americans regardless of where they were, and for individuals, families, corporations, small businesses across this country, or the fact that John Ossoff was good with the border being wide open, and we've closed all that. Regulations are a huge problem in this country. My kids do not have the opportunities that I had when I was growing up. And to be able to go over there and to the Senate side, where we have a problem where you don't have 60 senators. We send a lot of good legislation over there, but it gets held up because you don't have enough in the Senate to close debate. And John Ossoff is one of the reasons that we cannot do that. I look forward to getting over there, being a part of that, to continue our America First agenda and make sure that we continue to go down the road of changing this country, getting it back on track.
Yeah. Let me ask you too about, there's an ongoing House Ethics Committee investigation into your office. It was, the allegations were a member of your staff paid a romantic interest money for a job that sources of theirs claimed that was not being done. It was a report from the Office of Congressional Conduct said there was substantial reason to believe that this was going on in your office. Was it something that you knew about? How do you plan to deal with this ethics investigation while you're campaigning?
Listen, this is a bogus accusation. It's from former employees that were fired. I look forward, the ethics has not decided whether they would even take it up yet. But I look forward to answering any questions they have, look forward to working with them, and we'll get this past us as soon as possible. In the meantime, I don't think you've seen us slow down at all. People understand I'm a workhorse. You know, the good Lord put me on this earth to work, and I enjoy doing that. We're going to continue making sure that we prosecute the case against John Ossoff, making sure that people see the difference in the two of us, and at the end of the day, we will win that U.S. Senate seat.
Yeah, just getting back to that race itself, you know, we've seen, and I know you've heard this as much as I have, right? Between the PSC elections that went to Democrats, some of these state house seats that we saw flip red to blue over at the Gold Dome, do you think that Republicans need to do more leading up to the midterms to convince people to vote Republican? Is that going to be an issue?
Yeah, it's all about turnout, and people want to make sure that who they're turning out for is exactly who they are. You know, the people of the state of Georgia, whether they're people like us and me that are MAGA, that fully endorse and get behind President Trump, or whether it's people that just want bipartisan legislation, things to get done at the federal level, they know that I'm able to do that. We need to make sure that they understand that this is an important race, get them out to vote, and at the end of the day, I think you're going to see a huge turnout. I think you're going to see President Trump coming through the state quite often, and we're going to make sure that the voters turn out to vote.
Well, on that we agree, certainly. And what are you hearing? Because we know that when it comes to voters, at least, you know, just from our perspective, the economy certainly seems to be the issue that is on everybody's mind. What are you hearing from your constituents about the state of the economy right now?
Well, what you're seeing is people want affordability. They have gone through 4 years of inflation, high interest rates, fuel prices being through the roof, their groceries. Life has been unaffordable, even with health care. But what you've seen in the past 12 months, and you're going to continue to see the fruits of what we've been able to pass and what President Trump has put forth, legislation and EOs out there, but you're going to continue to see people get more money in their pockets. Whether it's no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, seniors are going to be able to keep more of their own money. S corporations taxes didn't go up, they stayed the same. You're going to see people take that money, and it is going to continue to filter throughout the private sector. Anytime you keep cash in the private sector, it turns over and over. And what does that produce? It produces more tax revenue. So at the end of the day, you're going to see folks that they're able to take care of their families. They're able to get back to winning, for a lack of better words.
Yeah. I still hear the concerns, right, from people that we talk to on a daily basis, sometimes your constituents, that life is still really tough to pay for. It's very difficult. You know, the president out in Rome got on stage and said the affordability crisis was manufactured, it was made up, and that he's beaten it. It just doesn't seem to reconcile with what we're hearing from voters.
Well, I think the president recognized that there was an affordability crisis out there. He's always said that we have put ourselves in this box. Joe Biden put us in the box, and John Ossoff was right there along with him doing that. During the first Trump administration, and I was in the private sector during that first Trump administration, I know what those policies did, not just for me and my family, but for my business and my community. I knew they worked. It's one of the reasons I went to Congress, was to make sure that we got those back and we made those permanent. and we continue to get the federal government off of the people's back. You know, I've got a piece of legislation sitting in the Senate right now called the Permit Act. And you do things, some of these things are behind the scene. No, they're not sexy, but they are actually out there helping this economy grow and turn around. Look at the amount of foreign investments that are coming back. People that took their corporations and moved it overseas, but now are bringing those back to the United States. We've added over, what, 615,000 jobs that have been added just since President Trump and his second administration. We've taken the federal government, we shrank that down. And even shrinking the federal employee number down, the number of jobs that are out there have gone up. And we made the federal government even more efficient. We've taken foreign labor out. People that were over here doing the job cheaper, and now you're seeing Americans be able to get those jobs. And they want to do those jobs. They just want to be paid for them. You know, we need to make sure that we get these visas from these foreign workers that have been coming in, taking jobs from these young people that deserve to have those jobs. So people are seeing the turnaround. Does it turn around on a dime? No, it doesn't. But they are beginning to see the effects of those, and I think they're going to continue to see them throughout this year.
Yeah, you mentioned your background as a businessman. Do you think that's what this Senate seat needs right now?
Oh, of course I do. You know, the 30-plus years of me being in small business gives me a unique perspective on what the federal government can do to you, and just how bad they can put their thumb on the scale and make it hard and actually push people out of business. And whether it's health care or whether it's dealing with just permits and regulations and taxes, I've felt that. I understand what that feels like. And that's where I get at, that I understand that, and I started my business when I was in my early 20s. And I understand that this younger generation, they don't have that. They don't have that opportunity. We're going to make sure that we're over there to represent the state of Georgia and folks in this state and make sure they have those opportunities again.
Yeah, and you mentioned healthcare, and I'm glad you did. You and I talked quite a bit during the government shutdown about these ACA subsidies.
Yeah.
I know you felt they were unnecessary. They had kind of run their course from the COVID days, but it did leave a lot of people with skyrocketing premiums. I mean, we saw people's premiums double, triple in some cases. And a lot of them were small business owners. And so I wanted to ask, you know, we heard the president talk very minimally about healthcare during the State of the Union. Yeah. We know that he has that HSA plan, but I think $1,000, $1,200 in an HSA isn't going to cover people's medications, people's doctor's visits for a year. What's the plan?
Congress has already implemented steps right now that are reducing healthcare prices, healthcare premiums. At the end of the day, the Affordable Care Act was never affordable. It was unaffordable. I remember the very first year the Affordable Care Act was put into law. I mean, my own group insurance on my company went up 62% that one year. So there was not anything very affordable at it. So why do you keep throwing money at it? What you got to do, it's just a simple business approach, and I think this is what President Trump is so good at. What is the actual problem? And when you look at the actual problem, look at who's been getting wealthy off of this. It's your insurance companies. Whether they have integrated up or down to buy up doctor's offices or facilities or pharmacies, just to make sure that they make more money. And then what did President Trump say we're going to do? We're going to change that. We're going to actually give the money to the insurer, not the insurance company, and let them make those decisions. When you open up the marketplace, whether it be through drugs and demanding that we don't pay the same pay to benefit so that countries around this world get discounts, you know, making things more affordable in healthcare, that's where you do it at. You don't just keep throwing money to insurance companies that are going to sit there and just continue to raise your rates.
Yeah. You know, another thing that the president, I think, very smartly and rightly brought up during that State of the Union, corporate home ownership. That's a huge problem that we have here in the state of Georgia, especially in Metro Atlanta. You know, John Ossoff is currently leading an investigation into corporate home ownership. We've seen some action at the state level with a couple of different bills that would try to tamp down that practice. Would you, if you were elected to a seat, would you continue that investigation and maybe try and pass some legislation that would pull back on this issue of corporate
no, sure.
ownership?
I think that President Trump's let's redo that.
Yeah.
You know, actually, I think that President Trump's EO, making sure that people like BlackRock cannot buy any more homes and turn them around and turn them into rental subdivisions. Because at the end of the day, home ownership, that's an American core value. You know, and when you have ownership and you're not just a renter, you're invested. You know, you're invested in the community. And we need to make sure that people have that opportunity and are not just pushed into a rental situation unless that's exactly what they want. But in so many cases right now, they can't afford to buy a home. And you take, hey, I hate to use my sons as an example again, but their family has grown. And the fact that when they bought their home, interest rates were low, and if they were to go buy the house that they need for their family size now, they would get less house because they couldn't afford the rates and their payments would go up. So making sure that things are affordable, making sure that free market is available to work, I think that's a huge difference. When you take a look at, take me and John Ossoff, he's a firm believer in the federal government is the answer to everything. Me, I'm a firm believer in less federal government in your life is the best thing, and boy, does the free marketplace work.
Does that include elections too? The president has floated maybe getting the federal government involved in local elections.
He's not getting involved in local elections. What we're saying is, and I wholeheartedly support the SAVE Act. It needs to be passed. What we're saying is, you know what? We live in the greatest country on earth. Why don't we have the most secure elections on earth? If an illegal is allowed to vote and can get in and vote, he has just stolen someone's vote that was legally here and had the right to vote. All we're saying is you need to have an ID to vote. Go get an ID by showing proof of citizenship and get that ID and participate. That way you put confidence back into the system, because there are a lot of people who believe that we have a problem out there.
I mean, proof of citizenship polls really well. That's also
it
something
does.
the president mentioned. What do you think the issue is in Congress with being able to get it passed over the course of decades where people have been proposing?
Well, because you've got Democrats that have allowed illegals to come in here and participate in so many different ways. Whether it's giving them CDL driver's license to be out there on the road. So they have filtered in this class of people that they want. At the end of the day, that's what they want, is for them to be able to vote, to make sure that they can stay in power. You know, John Ossoff could stand up today and go ahead and help get the SAVE Act out and passed, but he's not going to. That's not in their best interest.
Yeah, I mean, you know more about the commercial trucking industry than probably anyone in Congress, to be fair. You know, with the president's proposal to bar undocumented immigrants from getting CDLs, are you concerned? I know you're in support of it, but are you concerned about the impact that could have on the industry itself, with the amount of people that may not be coming into the workforce, with the amount of people that may be losing their CDLs? And that's a hugely reliable source for moving goods around the country.
Not at all. Not at all. We need to make sure our roads are safe, period. Delilah's Law is a great piece of legislation. And I'll support it. I will make sure that we help get that passed. We don't need people out there that cannot read or speak English driving trucks that weigh 80,000 pounds up and down the road. My family's out there, your family's out there, and in a lot of cases, if they don't understand the rules of the road, they're causing problems and fatalities and injuring people out there. We've got enough Americans in this country who would love to be a professional driver. It is a profession, and I have no problem. They could take them off the roads tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. You know, obviously immigration is a huge topic for you. It's kind of come to your doorstep now with DHS announcing that they're buying this facility in Social Circle to turn into an ICE detention center. Is that something that you support in your district?
You know, first of all, yes, I support DHS. I support getting rid of these illegal criminals that have invaded our country. And so I'm fully in support of making sure that we are able to do that. But I'm also support of Social Circle out there. They have legitimate questions, especially about their infrastructure, if they can handle it. And DHS has been addressing that. I look forward to them having that continued discussion to make sure that any fears, any questions that Social Circle has, that they are answered to their satisfaction.
Yeah, just to be, with a follow-up to that, when does that happen? Because DHS is moving very quickly on these detention facilities, and I think not only do officials in Social Circle want answers to those questions,
Sure.
but constituents do as well.
Yeah, well, what I would say is contact your U.S. Senator, John Ossoff, and tell him to reopen up the government DHS would be glad to come down here and hold a conference, but they're shut down right now. But they are handled by phone calls, and they are talking on the phone. They just can't travel. But they are in continued discussions now, and they'll continue to talk through this thing until we're all on the same page and we understand. No one is opposed to getting these people out of our country. We just want to make sure that the infrastructure is there, that the facility that they do pick is able to handle it safely.
Perfect. All right, well, Congressman, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.